If this 21-mile-wide water corridor closes for one single day, fuel prices double in Tokyo. Factories stop in Germany. Governments panic on the other side of the planet. This is the Strait of Hormuz. It is smaller than many lakes, and 1 out of every 5 barrels of oil on Earth flows through it. Every single day. Now, let me show you something the news will never tell you about this place. Imagine you are standing on a dry, rocky cliff. The wind is in your face. You look out at calm, dark blue water that stretches to the horizon. A few large ships move slowly in the distance, like sleeping giants on the water. This is the most strategically important water on Earth. But before it became a stage for world power, it was, and still is, a home for some of the strangest life on the planet. In the next 20 minutes, I'll show you the real Strait of Hormuz, the wildlife that broke the rules of biology, the rocks that look like Mars, the Persian healing ritual that teaches us how to live with what hurts us, and the 21 million barrel question that every government is afraid to answer. Let's start under the water. Before we talk about oil and military power, let's go under the water. The Persian Gulf is one of the hottest, saltiest, and most extreme bodies of water on Earth. In summer, the water temperature can reach 97 degrees Fahrenheit, that is 36 degrees Celsius. For most sea creatures, that temperature is deadly. Coral usually turns white and dies. Fish escape. Entire underwater ecosystems collapse. But here, they don't. While coral reefs around the world are dying because of rising temperatures, the corals in the Persian Gulf have done something remarkable. Over thousands of years, they slowly changed and adapted to survive the heat. These corals are now heat-resistant. Scientists from NYU, Abu Dhabi, and Khalifa University are studying them carefully because they may hold the secret to coral survival in our warming world. These reefs are home to over 700 species of fish. Dugongs, large, gentle sea cows, eat seagrass in shallow bays. Sea turtles swim slowly through the busy shipping lanes, completely calm. Life here has not just survived the extreme conditions, it has mastered them. There is an important lesson in that, a lesson this whole video will keep coming back to. Above these tough reefs sail the giant machines of our modern world. Every single day, around 21 million barrels of oil move through this passage. 21 million barrels. That is roughly 20% of all the oil used in the entire world, moving through a water corridor that is, at its narrowest point, only 2 miles wide on each side. If you look down on it from the air, you see enormous ships moving in organized lines. Very large crude carriers, some over 1,000 feet long, move slowly and heavily through the water. They travel in 2 lanes, one going in, one going out. It looks organized. It looks permanent. It looks safe. But that is an illusion. The whole modern world, heating your home, driving your car, flying on a plane, manufacturing the phone in your pocket, depends on this corridor staying open. Not sometimes open, always open, every single day. The moment the flow stops, because of a war, a political crisis, a mine in the water, or even one big accident. Things do not slow down gradually. They collapse quickly. The 1973 oil crisis gave the world a small preview. Prices nearly tripled. Governments panicked. People waited in long lines for petrol. This is the great paradox of the modern world. We have never been so technically advanced, and we have never been so dependent on one small geographical point. But who actually controls this critical passage? The answer involves an island most people have never heard of, and a 50-year-old territorial dispute that has never been solved. We'll get there in 5 minutes. First, let me take you somewhere that looks nothing like the Middle East. On the southern side of the strait is Musandam, a peninsula that belongs to Oman, but is separated from the rest of Oman by the United Arab Emirates. People often call Musandam the Norway of the Middle East. When you see it from above, you understand why immediately. Tall, sharp mountain ridges drop straight down into the sea, creating deep, quiet water channels, called khors in Arabic, that cut between the mountains like the famous fjords of Scandinavia. But these were not made by glaciers like in Norway. They were created by the slow, powerful movement of the Earth's giant rock plates pushing against each other over millions of years. The small villages hidden inside these channels are completely cut off. No roads connect them to the outside world. The only way in or out is by boat. The people here have learned to read the sea, the tides and the currents in a way that most modern people have lost. And then there is Telegraph Island. This tiny, rocky island was once a British communication station in the 19th century, part of an underwater cable connecting Britain to India. The soldiers stationed here, in the terrible heat and complete isolation, suffered so much that the English language gained a new phrase, going round the bend. The bend was the corner of land you went around to leave the island, and many of the men who went around it never came back the same. History was being made in Hormuz long before the first oil tanker ever sailed through. Further inside the Gulf is a small island most people have never heard of, but which political experts watch very carefully. Abu Musa. From above, it looks simple. Sandy beaches, a small town, a harbor. But Abu Musa is a heavily fortified position that controls some of the most important shipping routes in the region. It sits at the center of one of the region's oldest unsolved disputes. Iran controls the island. The United Arab Emirates says it belongs to them. Iran took control on November 30th, 1971, the exact day British military forces left the region. That timing was not a coincidence. Decades of negotiations have changed nothing. The island remains in Iranian hands. Satellite images show what appear to be missile launchers and radar equipment built into the rocky hills above the shipping lanes. And yet, life continues on Abu Musa. Fishing families fix their nets in the afternoon sun. Children ride bicycles to school in the morning. Old men sit in the shade and watch the same sea their fathers and grandfathers watched. On one side of the hill, ordinary, everyday life. On the other side, military equipment hidden in the rocks, pointing at the artery of the global oil trade. Abu Musa is not an exception to the Strait of Hormuz. It is its perfect symbol. But to understand the human side of this strait, the way real people live with this constant pressure, we have to cross to the Iranian mainland. At the northern edge of the strait is Bandar Abbas. Its name means Port of Abbas, named after a powerful Persian ruler who understood the city's strategic value 400 years ago. Today, Bandar Abbas is the military and commercial center of the strait. But this city is much more than a military port. It is built in layers of human history. Arab traders came here. Persian empires rose and fell around it. Portuguese sailors built a fort on a nearby island. Indian merchants arrived with the spice trade and never fully left. African communities settled here, brought by the old trade routes of the Indian Ocean. Each group left something behind. In the buildings, the food, the language, the faces of the people. This was never just a Persian city. It was always a crossroads. Walk past the old conical Hindu temple, built by Indian merchants centuries ago, and you understand this immediately. And then there is the Zar. The Zar is a healing ceremony found in communities along the Persian Gulf Coast. Its roots go back to East Africa, brought across the sea by people who carried their spiritual traditions with them. The ceremony is based on the belief that some illnesses are caused by harmful spirits, called Zar, that enter and live inside the body. But here is what makes the Persian Gulf version different. Unlike similar ceremonies in other cultures, the Zar does not try to violently throw the spirit out. Instead, it tries to negotiate with it. Through slow drumming, repetitive chanting, incense smoke, and gentle, trance-like movements, the healer tries to calm the spirit, to find a way for the person and the spirit to coexist peacefully. Think about that idea. In a region where the political habit has so often been to fight, to take, to control, here, an ancient healing tradition has survived for centuries by working on a completely different principle. You cannot always defeat what hurts you. Sometimes, the only way forward is to learn to live with it. That is not a bad description of diplomacy in the Persian Gulf. But the strangest place in this strait was not built by humans. It is made of color. Right at the mouth of the strait is the island that gives it its name, Hormuz, and it looks like nowhere else on Earth. The first thing you see from the air is the color, not the blue of the sea or the brown of the desert, but red, deep, rich, almost shocking red earth covering the island's surface. Then yellow, then silver, then purple. Hormuz Island looks less like part of the Middle East and more like a photograph of Mars. The reason is geology, the science of rocks and how the Earth was formed. Hormuz sits above an ancient underground structure called a salt dome, a huge mass of salt that has been slowly pushing upward through layers of rock for millions of years. As it rises, it carries iron, sulfur, and volcanic minerals with it, painting the surface in more than 70 different colors. The red earth, called galak by local people, has been used here for centuries. Mixed with oil, it becomes paint. Mixed with water, it becomes dye for clothes and fishing nets. And in one of the most unusual food traditions on Earth, people mix it into bread and fish dishes, giving the food a faint, earthy taste that comes directly from the island itself. The people of Hormuz do not just live on their land, they eat it. And then there is the Majara residence, a group of colorful, dome-shaped buildings made entirely from the local soil, shaped by hand. They look like they grew naturally from the earth instead of being built on top of it. At sunrise, they glow gold. At sunset, they burn red. It is architecture that does not fight the environment. It speaks to it. To the north of Hormuz, shaped from above like a giant dolphin, is Keshem, the largest island in the Persian Gulf. UNESCO recognized what local people have always known. This island is a natural archive. Begin at the Valley of Stars. Walk into it at sunset, and you enter a world that seems impossible. Wind and thousands of years of rainfall have slowly carved the soft rock into hollow columns, sharp towers, and tunnel-like spaces that make a low sound when wind passes through them. Local legend says the valley was created by a falling star, that these strange shapes are what is left after a star hit the earth long ago. Stand there alone as the sun goes down, and you will not be quick to disagree. Go deeper into the island, and you find the Chaku Gorge, a canyon with smooth walls shaped by centuries of floodwater into curves that look almost man-made. But look at the floor of the gorge, and you see the most important thing. Small wells, dug by hand into the rock. In a land where water is the difference between life and death, people cut these wells into the canyon floor to catch and store every drop of rain. These are not just holes in the ground. They are a monument to human stubbornness, to the refusal to give up. And then, underground, the Namakdan Salt Cave. At 4.3 miles long, it is one of the longest salt caves on the planet. Inside, ancient salt formations catch the faint light and fill the space with a soft, natural glow, as if the walls are lit from inside. The shallow pools on the cave floor reflect the glowing ceiling above them. The salt formations here are 550 million years old. That is older than complex animal life on this planet, older than fish, older than the first forests. To stand inside Namakdan is to stand inside deep time. The Strait of Hormuz is more than a point on a military map, more than a number on an energy report, more than a crisis that may or may not happen one day. It is a lesson, a quiet masterclass in survival under pressure. Think about what this place contains. Corals that learned to live in water that should kill them, showing nature a way forward in a warmer world. People on isolated peninsulas and remote islands who built lives full of meaning and skill, with almost none of the comforts most of us take for granted. An ancient ceremony that carries a philosophy, a way of thinking that chooses negotiation over destruction. Rocks and caves that make the Earth's deep history visible, reminding us that this planet works on a timescale so enormous that all of recorded human history is barely a moment. And running through all of it, every single day, 21 million barrels of oil. The flow that keeps the modern world moving, and that could, under the right circumstances, stop. The Strait of Hormuz is not far away from your life. It is a mirror. Look into it, and you see the world as it really is. Not stable, not permanent, not safe, but held together by geography, by careful diplomacy, and by the quiet daily adaptations of ordinary people who live at the edges of the world's most important places. As the world becomes less stable, as the climate changes, as old alliances break apart, the Strait of Hormuz does not become less important. It becomes more important. Not only as a corridor for oil, but as a place that has something real to teach us. About resilience, about negotiation, about what it means to survive under enormous, constant pressure, and to find, against all expectations, something extraordinary in the attempt.